Thanks everyone for joining. We're really excited to start this new webinar series, the Did You Know series. We just really want to highlight, different parts of Snapshot that might be new to people, and it might be in a feature that we really want to highlight, a new feature, or one that we just feel like not a lot of people know about and think it's a really cool feature. So this series is really meant to highlight those things that people might want to learn more about. And I see some familiar names in the list here of people who've joined. For anyone who is not currently a customer of Snapshot, Snapshot, really is the ultimate end-to-end org management solution that has all of these different features for admins and developers to help them manage and control their Salesforce orgs. And so, like I said before, with all of that comes a really big tool set that covers a lot of use cases. And so we started this series to highlight some of those and make sure that people are aware of how to better utilize Snapshot for their use case. So with that being said, today's webinar is about those tips and tricks, things that make it a little bit easier, things that you might not know about that can make your working in Snapshot easier. Things like logging in, best practices around logging in to the tool, manage and append your snapshots, the time series. We even have access to our knowledge base right from the tool as well. And things like preview versus display reports, right clicks, color coding, and as the training and support manager, these are things that I've actually answered a lot of individually on support tickets and things that, people didn't realize, like, oh gosh, that makes that pulling that report or viewing that report or exporting that report a lot easier. I didn't know that existed. And that is really what kicked off this webinar series from our side, is like, how do we bring this to people, not just on an individual basis when I'm answering support tickets, but, for others to know about as well. So with that being said, I'm going to kick off the demo. I'm going to stop sharing real quick. Okay. Perfect. So I'm going to start off with that kind of best practice around logging in, because this is a question that comes up sometimes. It doesn't always happen, but when you first log into the tool, or when you're logging in for the day, you're brought to this license manager screen. The license manager screen is where we authenticate your license. So you log into the org wherever the license is installed. That could be a production org, most likely, or it could be a developer sandbox or just a sandbox, whatever it might be. This is where you'll log into that org. And that just makes sure that you have a license assigned to your user, the license exists in the first place, those types of things. That's what we're doing on this screen. But I wanted to point out this account authentication drop down right here, because this is something that's really important especially if you're using a production account or org. You have obviously the option to do the production account where we ask for your password and security token. But if you use a custom domain, so if you've set up like a my.salesforce domain, you should use this custom domain option. Or if you use single sign-on, you should use this OAuth endpoint where we'll just ask you for the login page wherever you go to log in. The reason we recommend using one of these, if you have it, versus the production account, is we've seen it before where users will log in through their production account. Salesforce says that's okay because technically your username, your password, and your security token are correct, but actually Salesforce isn't authenticating you fully. So even if you're a system admin, Snapshot might not think that you have certain rights that you should, because Salesforce wasn't able to authenticate you fully into the tool through that authentication method. So we usually just say, if you use custom domain or single sign-on, use that option here to make sure that you're logged in, you have full access to what you need to get into the tool. So we use a little developer sandbox, so we'll choose that. Again, we're just making sure that you have the license, everything's good to go. And now you're in the tool. So once you're in the tool and you start taking your snapshots, the nice thing is you actually have a full history of your snapshots. So when you right click, you have this manage time series option. The manage time series, you can see here, shows me a full list of all of the previous snapshots that I've taken ever since, looks like August 1st of last year. I've got all these snapshots. So you can go in and see, this snapshot that I just took this morning, all of the things that were included in that snapshot. So in this case, I took a full snapshot. I described everything in the org. But in case I took a partial snapshot, you would see here what was all included in that snapshot. So if I'm looking at this snapshot for a certain report or something that I'm working on, I didn't grab queues, I know I can't really report on queues given this snapshot. So you can understand what was taken in that snapshot before you start doing reporting and thinking that something might not be there that it should. The other nice thing about managed time series is you can actually target previous snapshots. So you can see how an org has changed over time, and you can go into specific reports based on that snapshot at that time. So if I wanted to go in and say, the org as of March 1st, I highlighted here, again, I could see what was grabbed. But if I hit target now, and I were to hit OK, it'll close out the window. But now any report that I pull is going to be based on my org as of March 1st. So you can see, maybe if you're looking at profiles that you're changing or working on or consolidating, you can see based on my snapshot from March 1st to my snapshot today, how much has actually changed in the org. The other nice thing is you can do that straight comparison right from this compare time series. So you can see here, again, I've got my March 1st targeted. Maybe I want to do it versus today. And you can see here, Apex classes, there are some differences in this Apex class. So this Apex class changed in that couple months since that last snapshot. And you can run through all of the different things that might have changed in the org. Anything that's bolded like this will have those differences. So you can see here, there's no differences on community zones or connected apps. And the other nice thing is you can see those differences. This is a sneak peek of one of the other features I'll show is this pancake menu. It'll show you details, but I'll get into that a little bit later. So that's the manage time series where you're actually going in and you can import, export, work on an individual snapshot file that you've taken from the past. The next thing I'll show you is the append snapshot. The append snapshot allows you to add a new piece of metadata to an existing snapshot. This can be really helpful, especially if you've taken maybe a partial snapshot and rather than having to go through and create a whole new snapshot file, but you're like, oh, I forgot this one piece of metadata that I wanted to grab. You can actually go in here and say, okay, so I've got main assets. I can click here and say, I want to grab this AAA clone admin profile or this Atom bar custom object. You can scroll through and pick any individual piece of metadata, check whatever one you want. You can always right click and add all, whatever it might be, and then finally go to append snapshot. You can see here, again, what exactly you're grabbing in this append. So what this is going to do is add those individual pieces of metadata to the already existing snapshot. So you don't actually have to take a full or a full partial new snapshot. All you have to do is grab that piece of metadata and add it to the existing snapshot. So it can be helpful when you're just trying to save time. You don't want to go through the time of waiting for Salesforce to grab all of that metadata just for one additional piece that you might need. Okay. So the next thing that I want to show is, in case you have any questions and you're not quite sure where to go with support, if you need support's help, the first thing I'll show you is up in this upper left in this taskbar, you've got the support option. Here we've got the Metazoa website. We've got a ton of different white papers and use cases on the website. So if there's something specific that you're looking for, I would definitely recommend looking there because we try to answer a lot of those questions in those white papers and use cases of like, hey, someone else had this problem. Here's how they went about solving it. You can always go to our App Exchange listing, plus our documentation. So this takes you to our support site with all of our knowledge base articles. So if you're looking for something more broad, you have a kind of a broad question that you want to ask your ask the support site, you can always go here. This will open up a browser link to our support site. The other options down below are to schedule training. This takes you to our calendar to find a time to meet with a trainer. So if you wanted to just like, hey, I'm working on this use case and I need some kind of live help on what I might be looking for, you can always schedule training. You also have the chat open with support. That's our chat is available from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Eastern. So you can always open this, and this will open up a browser window with the chat where you can start talking with one of our support analysts to help with, if it's a specific question, like, hey, I got an error and I don't know how to get rid of it, or again, I just have a quick question, on a use case that I'm working on, and I don't think it'll take more than a couple of minutes to answer through chat. Let me go through that way. You can always do that as well. The other really nice thing is if you're actually working in a report and you say like, hey, I'm in the org dictionary and something's not, I'm getting something that I didn't expect, or I just have a quick question and I want to see if the support article will help me there, you can actually click this blue plus sign. So this opens up our knowledge base article on this specific report for you. So, and our knowledge base articles have, written out instructions on kind of how to work the report and what to expect when you do certain things, as well as a helpful video. So if you learn differently, you want to kind of watch someone walk through it, we have videos as well accompanying all of our articles. So I would definitely recommend, if you're working on a specific report and you have a question, go try this here and go to the support article itself. And you can always, whether it's through the tool or through our knowledge base, create a ticket through chat or through email as well. Okay, so actually, this is a good segue into our next topic, which is the concept of previewing versus displaying a report. So there's two ways to view a report. One is to preview it and one is to display it. This kind of trips people up when they click certain things or highlight certain things. They're not sure what they're expecting. So the idea of a preview report is exactly as it's stated. You're just previewing a certain metadata asset. In this case, we've got our org dictionary where we can document any piece of metadata. So let's say I'm looking at groups here. I've got certain aspects or elements of that metadata asset chosen. Maybe I wanted to add all of them. I just want to report on everything about the group. I've got it highlighted. So you can see here, I can only highlight one asset at a time. I can't like shift click or control click multiple assets. This is what appears in the preview report. So if I go here, you can see all of my groups, all of the different aspects of the groups. You can see I've got lightning links, metadata notes, last modified, things like that. But the difference between that preview and the display is by checking this box. So if I go over here and check next to groups, maybe I want to report on flexi pages, flows. If you highlight the asset in this case, you'll see what you'll be reporting on. So it's in flexi pages, I'm just reporting on these things. I could add more over here if I wanted to, or this whole thing adds all of the subtypes as well. But this is what's going to be added into that display report. So you can mark as many metadata assets as you want to pull into the display report. Depending on how much you grab will be, it will dictate how long it takes to pull all of that metadata and all that information. The other thing with the org dictionary especially is because you have the capability of reporting on every piece of metadata, I would caution against just grabbing every piece of metadata and reporting on it, because most of the time the computer just can't handle that size of a report and it'll error out because it's just too big of a file. So that's something to keep in mind. But now you can see all of the different, I've got org dictionary, for external service registration, external credentials, flexi pages, and so on. So I'm reporting on all of these different pieces of metadata if I want to. The other nice thing is you can always right click. I would say 99% of the time, if you want more options on something, maybe it's on when you're selecting metadata assets, check none, check all. I would definitely recommend right clicking, because that's typically going to have those options to, again, here in terms of checking things off, or if you're in the display report, you can export. So you can export to CSV, Excel, PDF, whatever you want. If you export to Excel, the nice thing is all of these different reports will actually be exported as its own tab. It's one file, but each one will have their own tab. So it's not going to be all jumbled together, and it's hard to kind of show which one is which, but you can see each individual tab for the type of report you want. And that's going to be that concept of preview versus display is all over our reports. Almost every report that you'll run into, there's going to be the concept of, if I want to highlight one piece of metadata, I can preview it. Or if I, in this case, select multiple objects to pull field usage, I would get all of those things in that one display report. Okay. And I actually already showed a little bit of this, but the next topic I want to highlight is the pancake menu. So the pancake, I call it the pancake menu. You can call it whatever you want. That's the thing that kind of makes most sense to me, is it really most often shows more information that you might not have right off the bat. So you can see here, I've got two pancake menus. One is just to make these windows, you can make them smaller or larger depending on what you're wanting to look for. But this one here shows you more information about specific, in this case, similar assets. And I've got roles selected. And you can see here, I've got the CFO and the channel sales team role, or the CEO, they're 74% similar based on what exists in those roles. When you slide this pancake menu down and select one of those cells, let's do this one, this is 80%. It'll actually show you in the role the differences or the similarities, depending on how you want to look at it. In this case, they're small metadata files, but there's two similarities. One is, two differences. One is a description, one is a name. That's all there is to it. Everything else is the same. You could do this for any piece of metadata in terms of similar assets and see, in this case, the differences in those two things. So whenever you see these pancake menus, I would definitely explore them to see if it'll show you. It can be really helpful to see those individual details that you might not get just from this report itself. So I would definitely keep an eye on these pancake menus. Again, you can see we can make one larger or smaller. And these are also littered all over Snapshot. So most reports will have some kind of pancake menu to show you more information or to resize windows if you're trying to focus on something versus another thing. Okay, and then last but not least, what I want to show you is the color coding. So the color coding is really helpful in certain reports to highlight certain things. So in this case, we've got identical is 100%. That's green, yellow. If something's really just not similar at all, it'll probably be red. You can control this by going into the display report. You can either turn it on or off, but you can also manage this. So you can see here, anything that's considered different is 50% or less. Anything that's similar is between 50 and essentially 99.9% similar. And then identical in this case is 100%. So you have, these are just out of the box. This will be, if you pull up similar assets in your snapshot, you'll see these values. You can always change them. So if you consider, maybe you only consider 95% to be identical in terms of how you're using that piece of metadata, you can always change these numbers and values to dictate what shows up as green, yellow, red. So if I were to go here, things might have changed in the report based on those numbers. Looks like they didn't much, but you have this color coding availability. And this is throughout Snapshot. There's a lot of different reports that you can run. So you've got things like org health scan. You can pick each individual test will have its own scale of what's considered a pass versus a warning versus a fail on a test. So like Apex classes that have not been executed recently, those are color coded based on the pass or the fail of how many Apex classes have not been run recently. So there's a lot of options to color code. If you ever change these values, look for those manage buttons that I showed you, because you can manage. In this case, I can reset the default value. So if I had made any changes to certain tests based on what I wanted to see, but now I'm working on a different use case and different parameters, you can always change these to be to reset them to their original value. So you know you're back to square one with this particular test. Let's see. I think that about does it for the demo. Let me go back and get back to my slides. Okay. Perfect. So, like I said, if you are new to Snapshot and some of this was unfamiliar and you just want to learn more, we do offer a 14-day free trial. You can also reach out to support if you want to schedule a training on something that you're working with and you want to see if Snapshot can help. We'd be happy to set that up, a training or a demo. So if you have any questions, reach out to either support at Metazoa or sales at Metazoa, and we'd be happy to get you squared away with Snapshot. Thanks, everyone.